Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am so excited about my next guest. We got connected last year. She did a podcast with me. We were on audio, but now we're on video.
Yeah.
So I get to see her live and in person. So I'm excited. But just quite a wealth of information. And I think these conversations are good the beginning of the year to kind of get us some good foundation and footing for, how we want this day to end. I mean, this year. Look, the day. Okay, I'm trying to make it through the day. But anyway, how we want this year to end up. So we have Angela with us today. And before we get into this conversation of all things great, we are going to give her the opportunity to introduce herself.
Okay. Thank you, Lichelle. My
Mhm,
name is Angela Capinera,
mhm,
and I own Your Mind in Bloom LLC.
mhm,
I'm located in Connecticut,
mhm,
and my infomercial, I guess, or my elevator pitch is
mhm.
I help people who are in trouble and transition. I help with academics, resumes, cover letters. I help with state licensing exams. So if you have like a board exam coming up or any kind of licensing, I help with that. I work with English language learners, special learners, um, pretty much everybody.
Awesome. So quite a resource right now because so many people are transitioning,
Yep.
their job ended, they're doing something different. So I guess the first thing would be how do we get ourselves in
Yep.
the space of the competition that's out there? How do we rise above that? Because so many people are kind of out there vying for a lot of the same positions.
Just having this conversation with one of my clients earlier this week.
Mhm.
It's connections, 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 making those connections, who you know, and having your numbers.
I love that. Now, so when we talk about connections, so this is good because, a lot of businesses thrive on, who you know. Your
Mhm.
network equals your net worth.
Yep.
So, what are some tips that we could share with everybody on how we can build those connections and maintain them?
Okay, so that's been the biggest challenge this year because again, when I talk to clients, a lot of them are, I don't want to say afraid of Zoom kind of thing, but kind of like, how do we,
Right.
how do we do this now? So again, goes back to what I was doing pre March 2020 and make a list of your top 50 to 100 people that you interact with on a regular basis. And I always tell people include church or house of worship wherever you go,
Mhm.
mosque, synagogue, whatever. And then again, that includes the spiritual leader, pastor, rabbi, priest, whoever. Talk
Mhm.
to them because again, they're usually well entrenched in the community. They know a lot of people. They know what's going on.
Mhm.
And
That's
then,
good.
yep. And then just again, don't I mean the basic rules kind of apply. Don't be bossy, but a lot of people are afraid to go and talk to people and say, "Hey, I need work." And I always say, "Well, look, you don't want to just call somebody on the phone you haven't talked to in 6 months. Be like, hey, I'm looking for work." Small
Right.
talk first. Find out how they're doing. Those rules haven't changed, so to speak. But just
Mhm.
again, it's just making and nurturing those connections.
I like that. Yeah. And so, talk to us about, what are some things that we should be doing regularly to kind of keep those connections, keep that funnel full, so to speak. You know what I mean? The way
Um,
that we should be maintaining it.
like just again, make a list. Say, hey, and say to yourself, who have I talked to this week? For a while, a couple years ago, I just started a notebook and I would just make notes like, who did I talk to today? Who did I interact with? And it was quite surprising. I mean, and again, even being technically home all the time now,
Mhm, mhm.
I can still talk to 20 people a day.
That's
You
good.
know, so it's just again making a list and saying, who am I talking to? And if you realize, okay, I'm not talking to this person or I haven't heard from this person,
Mhm,
it's time to um, reach out to them. And I had somebody reach out to me. I talked to again around the same time I talked to you back in March.
mhm.
Didn't hear from her. I got an email from her in November, and then she called me. She's like, "You didn't email me back." And I'm like, I said, "I apologize. I've been sorry. you've been on my list, everything's good. It's just, again, priority. But again, if you realize that person may have a good connection for you, you want to keep the communication up.
I love that. And so, another question I would ask is that type of communication. So, like you said, talking to 20 people a day. So, some people are like, well, I don't know what to say. You know what I mean? So, like, even if it's somebody you haven't talked to a while, like when you're keeping those lines open,
Yep.
what are some topics or things that we should kind of go to and talk about in order to keep that conversation and that relationship going?
Okay, so try to stay away from politics. Doesn't always work.
Right. I'm in Georgia, okay?
uh, but again, they're again, family, pets, how's the weather, what's going on. One of my groups that I belong to, again, before March, we were playing bunco at people's houses.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And again, we flipped to online bingo, and that's fine. I mean, just way to stay in touch. And again, there were those awkward like, oh, we're not doing anything because I just go grocery shopping, and you know. But again, like one of the women, she has new houses being built behind her. I'm like, so how are those new houses? And she's like, oh yeah, let me tell you, you know. So again, just being aware, I guess, of their physical space as well, where they are.
Mm-hmm. Those are some good points because some people, you've been so much in your own world, you don't know what to talk about.
Yep.
I mean, me, I always just, hey, let me tell you what my kids are doing. I start there, but everybody doesn't have that, scenario. So it's always good to kind of give us some insight about that. So, when it comes to just the job, let's see, because I heard sometimes that not all the jobs are posted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of them, can be like through connections.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody who is, wanting to find that job that's not posted, what can we do just in our own mindset or with our own activity to kind of create opportunities for some of these jobs, that may not even be in existence, but just the way we can kind of be creative with how we present that. If does that question make sense?
Yeah. So you're kind of asking two questions, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the first part is one simple word: ask.
Okay.
Say,
Love
hey,
that.
what's going on in your company, or again, don't be overly pushy. I always warn people you don't want to, burn your bridges before you get there, so to speak. Just
Mhm.
say, hey, what's going on in your company? I mean, again, everybody's talking about the economy, everybody's talking about shutdowns, everybody's talking about people who lost work. I mean, it's not like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a taboo subject anymore, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, because again, a lot of people are struggling, and but again, you need to ask. And again, back to the client I had this week. She knows about an opening because one of her clients at her current job works for the company she's eyeing. You know, so she was right on the ball. She knew, because I was my first question to her. I said, "Do you know anybody who works there? Because it's very competitive to get in there." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I already took care of that." I'm like, "Okay, perfect." I don't have to go through the whole go through your list and go on LinkedIn and things
That's
like that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so, are people still using headhunters and things like that? Because it's been quite some time since really, I don't even think I've really been in the job market, which is crazy. Right. Got my degree and just went right to being a mom. Okay. It's a little crazy. But anyway, so are they using headhunters or, what's the thing when it comes now? Is it everything online?
It,
What kind of stuff?
it's
Yeah.
mixed. I mean, as far as head hunters go, I mean, I have the name of somebody and I've sent him resumes. I
Mhm.
don't know if anybody's gotten a job.
Mhm.
But again, it depends on how well that person does their job. Just like anything else. And again, I'm not critiquing headhunters or anything like that. But I'm just saying,
Right, right.
if they do their job and they contact companies and um yeah, they're good. I mean, if they don't, or if they're just waiting for somebody to email them, or if it's a part-time gig, no, It all depends on the person. So again, I would ask for references and again, see what their success rate is.
I like that. And so for people who are now like trying to reinvent themselves and they're mastering their skills or learning new skills, what kind of things should they be learning right now that would kind of help them in the current industry and where we're going in the future that you kind of foresee?
Again, it depends on what industry they're already in or what industry they want to go into. Okay, because like again, I just had my client this week, so I'm going to kind of talk about her.
Okay.
She knew what she wanted to do. She knows what she wants to do, so she started working on it years ago. So she went back. She got extra certifications. Because she goes again. The purpose of the resume, she's like, "This is what I've always wanted to do. This job I'm looking for, and then I want to apply for." So again, she lined up her ducks in a row. And I have seen a few articles on this. But again, it's a very touchy subject with some people. I'm like, yes, I know the temptation is to sit there and watch, Law and Order for 2 weeks straight because you're miserable with everything that's going on. But at the same point, you've got to sit down and say, okay, what am I going to need in the future? And again, I mean, I kind of date myself with some people. I'm like, like a million years ago when I was in college, we didn't have things like Udemy and Skillshare and
No.
all these companies that I keep getting like Shaw Academy, I think. That again have yeah. Again, they've evolved and it may not be Yale. As at the same point, you can at least get a certificate in graphic design or something for relatively inexpensive.
I love that. And that's going to bring you a little bit above your competition. I mean, at least over somebody who's watching Law and Order reruns, right? So, what kind of industries do you think or should people really be looking out for in terms of, and I know it's hard to forecast. I mean, we look at 2020 and it's like we forecasted so much and we see where that got us with the rug pulled out from underneath us. But, in our rush to, maybe build a better 2021, what would be some things that you would think that would be good areas for people to kind of be mindful of pursuing something in for 2021?
I mean, one thing that's never going to go away is customer service. I mean, that's never going to, no matter where you go, what profession you're in, what industry you're in, customer services. I mean, as you saw from my webpage, again, I volunteer once a week at my local EMS service. And even there, they beat into us customer service. Yes, you're hauling somebody to the hospital, but at the same point, treat them like a human being. So again, it doesn't matter healthcare, IT, whatever you're doing, coaching. It's all about customer service.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's definitely one thing. And again, a lot of, customer service does get a bad rap because, you have those pictures of like the office and people sitting in cubicles upon cubicles and, robocalls and things like that. But, again, most jobs are customer service. And again, people skills, dealing with people. I've spent a lot of time these last 10 months reading up on, and again, I do this all the time, but just seeing how different people approach different things. And sometimes, again, most authors will tell you it's just the small things, using somebody's name, repeating back to them what you're hearing kind of thing.
That's good stuff. Now, there's so many people that are struggling with mental health, during this time, depression, anxiety, the list goes on and on with some of the hot health things that are happening just as a result of the economy or, even grieving, losing, I was watching something one day, and they were talking about how, we're also grieving our old life. How we used to be able to go out, do certain things and, go into the restaurant or whatever the case may have looked like. So there's a lot of grief that we all are dealing with. So have you noticed any kind of different jobs that are coming up for people that are assisting with that outside of the norm, that can be somewhat of a support system or groups or different things within the job industry?
I'm seeing a massive amount of people going into coaching.
Okay.
Massive.
Mhm.
Even people I would be like, "Coach, you? Really?" Okay, I'm like, okay, I'm like, whatever floats your boat. But again, it's the same thing. You have to find somebody who works for you. I mean, if
Mhm.
somebody said to me once, if you want somebody to light that fire under you, you're gonna have to find somebody who's opposite your personality.
Mm.
You don't want somebody who's gonna go, okay, Angela, okay, Lachelle, it's okay. You want somebody who's gonna take that match and light it under you and be like, get moving.
No, that's right.
You know,
So true. So true. I mean, because, if they're like you and what you've been doing has not been working, well, then why is it going to work with two people
yeah.
being like you? You know what I mean? I ask myself that question. It's like, it's sometimes, and I was in a meeting last night, and we always say people like and trust.
Hmm.
And I get that. That sounds good. But, sometimes it means people that are getting results.
Yep.
And sometimes people that get results you don't like very much because they get you out of your comfort zone.
Yep.
If you have a trainer and, they're telling you telling them you want to lose 10 pounds and they're having you run up and down and do whatever, at some point you're like, look, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
You're not liking them very much, but you know what the end game is.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not always liking. It's a matter of, you have to decide, do you want the results or are you trying to have a friend, so I think that is something key to bring up. So that's just amazing. Now you talk about resumes and things like that. So what type of steps should people take when it comes to building their resumes? Something like that it's been a while for me since I've even been involved with that. So what are some things we should be putting into account? And if there is this gap, from you being in a certain field for so many years and now it's kind of gone away or whatever, disappeared, how do you transfer that knowledge or whatever on your resume? What should we be doing?
Um, Knowing what you're doing and acknowledging your numbers. So
Mm-hmm.
the biggest problem I have, and again, ladies, don't take this personally, especially with women,
Mm-hmm.
getting numbers out of them is like pulling teeth.
Mm.
They will not. I mean, I've had people who are handling millions of dollars for top tier companies. I'm like, well, how much money are you handling? And they're like, well, I'm not counting cash. I'm like, no, 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 no. I know you're not counting cash. You're sitting in the C-suite. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, like, how much money is like flowing through your computer every day, or how much are you tracking?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing. I said, because I said, if you're making $1.7 million in sales yearly, it's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that says you have the good customer service. You follow through. You know your customers. I'd be like, I want you. Come here. I'll hire you. Like I will hire you if I ever have the money.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. So again, your numbers, again, if you've trained anybody, that's another thing. Oh, well, I've only had, okay, well, tell me how many people you've trained. Again, 50, 60, 100 people.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay. Some people don't like the word training. I'm like, that's fine. We'll find another word. Okay. Things like that, knowing your numbers, how many customers you're dealing with daily. Again, I tell everybody it's your resume. If you want to do it daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, I don't care. It's you're going to be the one who's going to have to do the talking, not me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kind of
I
thing.
love that. Yeah, and I like the way you put it because, people need to know the scope of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just get into this routine of, oh, I did this, I did that. I mean, that's like a stay-home mom,
Yeah.
but now I'm like, look, I'm calculating everything. I'm laundry,
Yeah.
dishes, cooking, what I mean? It's like, hey, that's a lot of tasks.
Yep.
So I like the way you put that because we just kind of shortchange ourselves
Yep.
about all the things that we're capable of bringing in terms of value. And that's one of the things that we need to be mindful of when it comes to negotiating for a position is the value that we're bringing to the table.
And it's interesting you mentioned gaps, because again, that's been another big question I've gotten. Again, who's on leave, who's still on unemployment, whose employer hasn't cut the cord yet, but they know it's coming. I'm like, look, I said, until that employer hands you your pink slip, you are working for them. I don't care if the state's paying you. I don't care. I said, until they say you are done, the company is closed, or we can't pay you anymore, you are in their employ. And that's another thing people have to realize. And I deal a lot with gaps, especially with people who are coming out of the military. Because again, it usually takes about 6 months to reacclimate to civilian life, so to speak. And again, they're like, well, it's been 6 months. And again, we've been so conditioned over the years for resumes, especially when you go online and look at the sample resumes, you got to put down your months. I'm like, don't put your months. Okay. I said, I've had people who've been taking care of parents. I've had people with major surgery. I've had people in the military. I've had people with drug and alcohol issues. Okay. You know, I said, I can put down that you're working for the state while you're really in prison, because you are technically working for the state. But at the same point, you know, don't shortchange yourself that 3 months. You need to get back into, you know, everyday life.
Yeah.
And then, because again, they're just going to look at the gaps, and that's all they're going to see. They're not going to see, again, you can make $1 million and be unemployed the next year. And I said, they're just going to see that gap. And again, this is where a lot of people also shortchange themselves, because a lot of people are volunteering, they're helping family. And they're like, well, it's not a real job. And I just saw somebody's LinkedIn profile. I did her resume a couple of years ago. I told her, she's mainly been doing volunteer work. I was like, put your volunteer work first. Even though you aren't being paid, you are still basically doing a full-time job. What did she do? Not put her volunteer work first. And I was like, those are one of those things. Again, she took what I wrote and she put it in there, but she just followed LinkedIn's, you know, okay, paid first, then volunteer. And I'm like, no. Just because LinkedIn says it that way doesn't mean you have to do it that way.
Yeah.
You know, that's another trap everybody I see falls into. And you know, because now it's looking like she hasn't worked in like 4 years. I'm like, but you're working, like, you know, so again, I haven't quite figured out how to email or call her and be like, I kind of saw your LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it's the whole thing about knowing what questions to ask, you know, sometimes too, because, you know, that's just like you said, we get conditioned to things being a certain way. We need to unlearn some of these things that don't serve us. And the value that you bring when you are volunteering, I mean, there's still a lot of responsibility with that, you know. We have our own church, and I'm like, hey, that definitely, we're not getting paid for that, but it's a lot of responsibility coordinating music and, you know, your parishioners and counseling and all the number of things that go into that. So I get that. Yeah, you definitely need to, and just the way that people just want to know that you are serving, or you have some talents and skills. I mean, a lot of times they don't even read the dates unless they're trying to weed out certain resumes. And so it's like, this one has gaps, put that in that pile, you know, and then that makes it easier for them to weed you out because you follow that algorithm or whatever.
So, but again, and some people, again, they have, you know, conflicting dates, and then I'm like, we will figure it all out. Okay. But the point is, don't have any gaps. Okay. And, you know, again, I'm just going to use my military and ex-offenders as an example. They're like, well, I wasn't doing anything. I'm like, okay, but, you know, a lot of you are home taking care of your kids. You're trying to take classes. You know, I said, we can write that up as like a personal caregiver, or however, again, you feel, you know, again, I'm giving them my words, but I said, it's some, you know, at the same point, they have to come to me and say, okay, again, like my client this week, there was a word I used. And she's like, I can't even say that word. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll find another word.
That's right. Get a thesaurus, okay? Look it up, okay? But I see what you're saying. We got to, you know, you have to level up. If you don't put yourself in a position to think higher of yourself, why is somebody going to pay you for a position or anything, you know, if you don't value yourself? So I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So that's again, most of my conversations with people run along those kind of lines. And again, some people are good. Some people just need help getting their ideas and, their experience down pat. But again, everybody's, again, I always get people call me and they're like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, everybody's different. I mean, I'm going to talk to you for you. I'm not going to talk to you for the last person I helped.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Conversation I'm having with you is not going to be the same conversation I'm having tomorrow.
Right. I love your no nonsense approach. I'm telling you though, but people will go around the mountain when they can just get there on the straight road if you're just ready to tell them how it is. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes you try to tell them and they don't want to hear it. They're just trying to put you in some mode. So I get that. So do we have cover letters or anything? Or how do we make resumes for specific jobs? So like, if you're applying for different places, do you make that resume specific to each place, or what's the thing for that?
Definitely. And again, the sample cover letter I give people, and I do tell them you can call me, not like the day before it's due, but like a couple days ahead of time, and say, look, I'm stuck on this cover letter. But again, I give them a sample cover letter and I say, you want to have, again, be very nice, keep it simple, and say, this is the person who referred me.
I love that. Yeah.
Because again, at least, you can make that connection. Again, there have been times somebody's called me and been like, but they have, again, a unique situation. They're like, I don't know how to word it. I said, okay, just tell me what your relationship is to this person, how long you've known them, and we'll make it work.
Yeah.
And it's usually just changing a couple sentences here or there.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I like I said, I love your approach because you have to be like that. Otherwise, you'd be on the phone for 2 hours with every person.
Yep.
Because they want to tell you their story, and I get that, but you're running a business, and hey, you just got to do it. And you're so well versed with being able to understand the connections you can have with different companies, based on helping them find people or getting people to them or whatever the case may be. So I get that. Yeah. So that's great. So I guess the final thing I would ask is, what advice would you give somebody, about starting their own company or, their own business based on their skills? What'd you say?
You have another 2 hours? Oh my God. It's been such a roller coaster ride and still is.
You are right. But for somebody who's like, I want to do my own thing. I've been tied to corporate America. Now I have a way out. Where should they start if they kind of want to hone in on these skills and kind of do their own thing?
You were going to hear bazillions amount of advice. I don't know how many videos I watched, how many this, I mean, I've had my LLC 10 years this past October. Okay. Before that, again, I tell people I've been doing what I've been doing over 20 years. I mean, not walk around in a t-shirt being like, hey, as if I've been doing this a long time. And, again, I said, most of your referrals are going to be word of mouth, people who know you. That's the first thing. Everybody thinks they're going to drop $1 million in advertising and, people are going to be walking through the door and I'm like, nope. Again,
Right.
especially something like I do or coaching or,
Yeah.
is that you gotta, again, pay the government first, all 3 levels, because they're going to come after you if you don't. I've heard some horror stories about that. I think that was the scariest thing for me because I'm like, I've never self-paid. And Lord knows I had plenty of jobs who screwed me over because I didn't understand the system. And I ended up paying like a bazillion amount the next year in April. And again, it's just being you. I mean, like you said, I'm, not no nonsense, direct approach. And that turns a lot of people off. I'm like, if you want warm and fuzzy, I got time for warm and fuzzy. But, when you're sitting there failing a class or can't pass your state licensing board or exam,
right,
warm and fuzzies for after you pass. You know,
Exactly.
I have one client, when I started with her, oh, she got so mad at me all the time. She still does. She can't spell something. I make her go back. I'm like, spell that word again. You know,
Right.
and even today, she was having trouble with the word specific. She kept going like specific or I'm whatever. I go back and spell it. And I made her do it 3 times. I was like, I don't care. I said, because she's getting the accommodation she wants for the test. I said, that's great. I said, God bless you, because a lot of people have to fight for that. At the
Yeah.
same point, if that word isn't a question, you need to know what the reader's saying.
Mm. I love that. Yeah. And, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that, people say it's tough love, right? But I'm just saying it's common sense, right? Because, when you make excuses or give people out,
Yep.
they don't do the work,
Nope.
so you have to have a mindset of there are no excuses. If you want this, you could have it, but you have to work for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, I get that. And hey, I get what you're saying. Now, some people can say some things in a nice way, but it just depends on, like you said, your audience and what it is that you're delivering for them.
Yeah.
So for somebody who's failing and you need to pass this class, this is not something that's warm and fuzzy.
Nope.
Okay, this is make or break your career.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, but I just love it because, hey, I mean, that's my kind of thing, is to be able to, everybody's different.
Yep.
And when you know your audience and that's a good thing. You can be who you are. And the people that aren't your people, they're going to be out of there anyway. So it makes your job even easier because you don't have to pretend, and ingratiate people that just are not for you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because if you look at my website, I have an ideal client contract thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that came about because, again, somebody was giving me the runaround. And I just finally one day, I'm like, I've had enough. And my poor husband's like, you're going to scare everybody off. And I'm like, look, I would rather scare them off and then not listen to this woman complain on the phone for 15 minutes and not even give me the business afterwards.
Yes. Okay.
So when I tell people about running a business, I say, you got to be upfront about your boundaries.
Yes.
Yes, I have my nicey moments and I have my kumbaya moments and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But again, metal hits the road or tire, whatever that expression is. You understand?
Right.
Right. The shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, honey, it's okay, you're failing. No, I mean, like, again, back to the client with the spelling. I told her when I first met her because she's like, who did like, oh my God, who do they send me like to help? With her son. I think she was expecting somebody a little bit different.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, but you just have to be unapologetic. And it's so much a breath of fresh air to see people be that way. Yep. Because, we all kind of feel like, well, if I'm somebody talking about business, I have to be like Tony Robbins, or whoever. And it's like, look, I'm not that person. Okay. That's just not me. And, I think it's just that whole thing of knowing, I mean, you've been doing this for 20 years. Why do you have to try to pretend to be somebody you're not for people to be trying to do business with you? It's like, look, do you want the results? Or not? Okay, because I know what I'm talking about. If not, go on to the next person, So I get that, and you have to be like, and you brought up a good point about people will steal your time. Mm-hmm. You will talk to them, they will get as much information as they want for free, and then don't give you the business. I mean, it takes a few times you learn that lesson and you're like, hey, we're not doing that again. Yeah. So I get that.
Yeah. And again, I've even had clients, I've met them one time and they just like refuse to call me back. And I'm just like, okay, so I guess it didn't work. Mm-hmm. But at the same point, like you were saying, don't, if you're just trying me out, thank you for paying me. But at the same point, don't waste my time.
Yeah, I feel you, because It's just, life is too short, and that's one of the things that I've learned just on my journey, and just with this past year. I mean, the rug was pulled out of everybody's life,
Yeah.
and you don't get sometimes a do-over, with some things. So it's like, why even feel that you are inadequate, or you have to be somebody you're not, to do what you want to do? If this is a business that you are choosing to do, you can choose the clients that you want to work with too. So I mean, I get that.
Yeah. No, that's,
Mhm.
like I said, that's pretty much, again, in quick summation, again, about running a business. And, and again, it's just learning, 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 learning.
Mhm.
I find a lot of people are willing to learn just to like start the business.
Mhm.
And then they're just like, well, but I have everything I need. I'm like, you never have everything you need.
Right.
Even this year with Zoom. I mean, the minute the governor shut down our state, I'm like, Zoom on, and again, it was literally on my checklist for 2020, get on Zoom, because I'm like, because again, I was driving around meeting clients. Some of them, again, the geographic reach was starting to expand. And,
Mhm.
I had a lady mad and yelling at me because she's like, well, you can't make it. I'm like, look, you understand, like, you're 45 minutes away from me, you know, like, you know, do we have any other options? And, you know, I'm going from you to somebody else to somebody else.
Mhm.
I mean, there's been times I've been sitting in traffic
Mhm.
and then I'm
Mhm.
late, and then it's a, reverberating effect.
Right.
Everybody's waiting, you know.
So
So,
true. Yeah.
I went on Zoom and I'm like, that's probably the best thing, everybody's like, oh, 2020 sucked. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to say that. It's going to be controversial for years. And, I said, but you got to look at the bright side. I said, I went on Zoom. I could actually get more clients in a day,
So true. So true.
you know,
Yeah.
you gotta, and again, never say like, oh, I'm gonna, I think that's what drives me nuts is people are like, I'm gonna stop learning, or, I'm like, again, even once you get your license, like, state's gonna make you take continuing education credits or
Yeah.
whatever industry you're in. You,
Mhm.
you can't stop. And even, and then again, the people who are just like, well, I'm just gonna do my CEUs and that's it. I'm like, no, 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 like,
Mhm.
you can't just do that because
Yeah.
you're just gonna fall behind. Whatever,
So true.
I mean, and again, everybody's different. I said, but again, if you enjoy what you're doing,
Mhm.
I point out cosmetology because I'm like, I don't get my hair dyed. I mean, after doing it with several clients, I'm just like, oh my God, some of those chemicals. Um, yeah. They're like, why are you gray? After having that bio stuff stuck under my nose, I'm like, nope.
I
Uh,
don't mean to laugh, but it's the truth. I don't dye mine either. I'm like, my kids are like, I have a 6 and a 9-year-old. They're like, Mommy, are you getting old? We see gray hair. I said, hey, that means I'm wise.
yeah,
Okay. But yeah,
yeah,
and then it's like, you only have so much hair. You get to dyeing it and it gets to falling out.
yep, yeah. But again, there's like, if you're in the cosmetology industry, you got to know what the next thing is, or bring in different products for your clients, or
Right.
you can't just do the same tried and true,
Hmm.
and
So true.
so like I said, it's just those things that just make me like, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
and again, the people who think, oh, I'm going to go into coaching, I'm going to make $1 billion tomorrow. I'm like, ha ha
Yeah. I
ha.
mean, it's all about, people don't understand the marketing that goes behind a lot of these
Yep.
things. I mean, they do good jobs with a lot of these sponsored ads and stuff, because it's like, hey, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's a work in progress. So I definitely get that.
Yeah. And another
So,
thing, especially for women, again, I won't even go near sponsor ads, and everybody's like, you should do them. And I'm like, I will find my clients organically. I'd rather do
yeah.
that than right, everybody who's getting my ad. But anyway, I think especially for women, again, I spent a lot of time watching people like Tim Ferriss and there's other people I watched, like, I don't remember. But again, mainly men, Vanderchuck, whatever his name is.
Oh, yeah. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, they are not your reality as a woman.
Right.
That's the other thing. Okay. I said, they probably have somebody at home cooking and cleaning and,
Yeah.
you know, I said, my kids are like, you suck as a housekeeper. And I'm like, well, then help me. I gotta, you want money for sports? I got a business to run, you know?
So
So,
true. So true.
you know,
That stuff doesn't even bother me. I'm thinking, hey, I keep my area together. What's wrong with you? Because if you talk about the house stuff, it's your
mhm,
room, it's you not cleaning up behind yourself.
mhm,
So, we got that done. But
yeah,
yeah, so it's so true. But a lot of that goes to, again, what we are thinking society
yep,
is expecting out of us. And, we think we have to do it all. I
yep.
mean, I've been there, done that. And my joke is that because people are like, how do you do it? You got 10 kids. And I said, well, I wear earplugs and walk around with rose colored glasses.
I haven't gotten to the rose colored glasses yet.
So it's like, oh, everything is, look, I feel like I'm one of those hippies around here sometimes. Oh, everything's great. Everything's cool, dude.
Yeah,
How a dick, sink full of dishes. You know what I'm saying?
oh,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But well, this has been a lot of fun,
yeah,
and I hope everybody really was taking notes over a lot of the things that you were saying, because we really need to be mindful of connections, 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 and ways that we can think out of the box with some of these things, because there's a lot of people, like you said, in the job market, and if anybody is following the trends for unemployment and things like that, it's not going to be you just go out there and get that ideal job that in normal times might even be available. It may look like you pivoting and doing something a little different, or being creative enough to create something that helps and gives value in the industry that you're in.
yeah. And even,
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw the articles about again, these lockdowns have hit women the hardest. Some of them are saying we're never going back, or again, a lot of the service jobs have been lost, mainly female workers. And,
Mhm.
I'm like, I hope wherever they are that they have again some kind of entrepreneurship program,
Mhm.
that's going to help them, figure out to, self-employ or, you know, things like that. So, I mean,
That's good.
you know, that's kind of like my one, like, I read an article like that and I'm like, oh my God, like, I just, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I know the landscape for a lot of people, they don't realize how this domino effect can help or affect so many different industries. It's a snowball that really it could be an avalanche real quick if you're not mindful of it. So, that's a good point to bring up, because, and if we're resourceful enough, we can pull together and come up with some creative businesses, that require working from home, doing virtual settings when it comes to customer service, because so many people get caught up in the shiny object syndrome of, oh, my business is going to be successful. I'm going to do automation,
Yeah.
or, have these systems. But the minute you start taking out the human capital to
Yep.
some of these things, the model does not stand.
Nope.
Hmm.
No.
So
So, so
great point.
if you're out there listening, one of these women, please help them.
Hmm. Definitely. And if you need some help with, just giving you some insight and things, and somebody with a no nonsense approach, okay? Angela is the person for you. So,
Thank
hope you guys were taking notes. This was some valuable insight. And what's the best way for them to get a hold of you, Angela?
I think I said this back in March and it hasn't changed. My
Okay.
phone. Uh, 203-414-5176.
Mhm.
Your Mind in Bloom, Google. Somebody did take my Instagram handle. I wasn't too happy. I found that, but I'm Facebook and Twitter, Your Mind in Bloom. Instagram, I'm Your Mind in Bloom LLC is my handle, LLC on the end. But again, you'll see a picture of my business card. Hang on one second.
Okay.
See, got everything. Oop, 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 oop.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Hey, I love it.
Thank you.
Blue and red. That's me. Yeah.
I think it's orange.
Oh, it looks blue and red.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But again, that's me. And
Okay.
so, oops. And yep. But again, just again, sorry.
That's okay.
About doing yourself. Yeah, my business card fell. Okay. You have to pick it up. Otherwise I'll find it 2 weeks from now and be like, how did it end up under
Yeah, and I know that's right.
um, again, you're welcome to give me a call, text me, any questions. Again, I'm available. Zoom, GoToMeeting, FaceTime. I haven't done WhatsApp yet, I don't think. Skype, Microsoft Teams, but I usually use Zoom as my main platform.
Awesome.
So
Well, you guys reach out to her. I encourage you to do so. Right now, this is a time where we are making a lot of transitions, reinventing ourselves, new beginnings. Any of those things apply to you and Angela resonated with you, reach out to her. I encourage you to. And what final words would you like to share with everybody, Angela?
the quote, actually two. One, carpe diem, seize the day. And the Japanese proverb, if there is no wind, row.
Oh, I love that one. That's a good one. If there is no wind, row.
Row.
That's good. Okay. That's all about creative and pivoting. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for watching us this evening. This has been a blast. And again, reach out to Angela, go on her website, follow her on all her social media handles, and begin to take some steps to getting that job or position or whatever it is that you're looking to do in order to be a better version of yourself in your career. We want to thank you guys for watching us tonight, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye.